Big strike. Just a regular hero? And step into my offiz. All these and much more coming up on the Use Your Head podcast. Welcome all to the Use Your Head podcast, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. I am John McLean with our weekly look into the news of the day and other things, not just news, but, social aspects, things that we're all seeing and doing and reading about and scratching our heads about with one purpose, and that is to use our heads. Emphasis on our. Constantly, there are those who want us to think like them and live like them, perhaps even vote like them, who are trying to tell us what to think, how to interpret the news of the day, what to believe about life, our worldview, etc., which side to take. But what they never do is they never encourage us to decide for ourselves, to use what our Creator gave to us, this mysterious and wonderful ability to reason. We call it using our head on this show. So happy that you've made your way to us. We hang out together for about a half hour every week. Usually in the middle of the week, I try to get an episode in as we speak today. This is Wednesday, the 2nd of October. And just after lunchtime, I got some interesting stuff together for you, and I hope that you'll enjoy this half hour. Little housekeeping. Thanks for listening. We're on platforms all across the internet. I'd love for you to rate the show if you wouldn't mind, and tell a friend if you think this content would be beneficial to them. One other thing, by the way, that I'd love you to do is reach out to me. Got an email address for you. It's john@useyourheadpodcast.com. That's john@useyourheadpodcast.com. Anything goes there. If you want to suggest a topic, you want to argue with me, you want to tell me I'm wrong, I would really like that. What I'd really like even more is I'd like for you to send me some audio. I'd like for you to appear on the show, if you will. If you have a question or comment or want to express yourself, record something into your phone and email it to me. Again, the address is john@useyourheadpodcast.com. I forgot in preparing for today's show to apply BlueStack, so just a moment. Lips are really dry. All right, there we go. We're all set to go. And with that, let's kick off with our very first topic. We're calling this one Big Strike. Yeah, you may have read about this in the news. Story's about a week old, but it's kind of taking on a life of its own, and it is a pretty big deal. This article comes to us from USA Today. Medora Lee writes that port workers' strike could snarl the supply chain and bust your holiday budget. Here's the story. Americans could face high prices and shortages again this holiday season, but this time it would be because of a worker strike instead of a global pandemic. As of Thursday, the International Longshoremen's Association, known as the ILA, said labor talks with the United States Maritime Alliance, otherwise known as USMX, remain at a standstill, and about 45,000 of its union workers at 36 East Coast and Gulf Coast ports are ready to walk out the beginning of October for the first time since 1977. The ILA is looking for higher wages and protections against automation. A strike could lead to shortages of certain items and boost prices for voters already frustrated with housing and food inflation, experts said. Experts doesn't say who they are. The ports handle about half of U.S. ocean imports, including food, clothing, auto parts, cars shipped via container, and holiday toys, these same experts said. A supply chain disruption would undoubtedly lead to price increases across the board and would impact consumers' ability to find the toys they are looking for in the weeks and months ahead, said Greg Ahern, president and chief executive of the Toy Association. I'm serious. All right, let's stop right there. We're talking unions here, and we've talked unions here before, and I've received feedback from many of you that you don't like unions. And look, that's fine, all right? people land all along this spectrum, and I totally get the anti-union argument, and I frankly agree with a good portion of it. Labor's a tricky thing because it's personal. It's personal to not only ourselves and what we do for a living, what we're gifted for, and also a function of our lifestyle and our family situations. There's a lot that goes into this argument. Like most things, it's very hard to just flip a toggle switch and say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. All right. There's a lot of gray in this area. Okay. I would like to play a little soundbite. I don't do this often, but there's a gentleman, the president of the ILA is Harold Daggett. Harold is quite a character. He's been doing this since the 60s. All right. He is a longshoreman's longshoreman. There is little that he has not seen in the business. He recently did an interview for his union to kind of explain his position in preparation for what was happening, frustrated about the state of things in general around the longshoreman industry. Now, if you're not familiar with what that means, a boiled down version, and I've never been a longshoreman, but basically what they do, and it's very important, when these gigantic ships float in from China or Europe or China or China or China, they're loaded with all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of giant containers, right? And these containers wind up on railroad trains, and they wind up as 18-wheeler trailers, and they deliver the goods to wherever they're going. But how do those containers get off the ship and onto terra firma? That's what the longshoreman does. In the old days, they would literally put on a pair of gloves and a back belt, and they would walk onto the ship and haul crates off. Now we've got these gigantic container cranes. You've seen these massive machines. If you've ever been on a cruise and you've sat on the ship looking around the port, you've seen these gigantic cranes that reach down and clamp onto these huge containers and then lower them down where they're either loaded onto a train or something, or maybe they're offloaded right there in a forklift. In any event, these are the longshoremen. These are the ones that take the stuff off the boat and put it on the shore. Okay? Very important work in the supply chain. I mean, it's a critical link. There's no doubt about it. Some thoughts, though, about frustrations in the modern day for this really fairly ancient career. I mean, think about this. Way back in the day, I'm talking since we've had shipping lanes, the old wooden ships that would travel the seas of old, thousands of years ago, there were longshoremen. Often they were slaves, probably in those days, but there had to be people taking the stuff off the boat and putting it on the shore. It doesn't just happen. So this is a long-needed, important function in any economy. So without further ado, here's ILA President Harold Daggett with some of his thoughts. Check this out.
They don't want anybody. They don't want to pay anybody. It's not only this union, it's in every union in every aspect. If they keep putting machinery to take our jobs, who's going to pay the income tax? Machines are not. Who's going to pay for the military, the roads? Everything runs by taxes. You go in a store today, it's self-checking. They don't need anybody to check out no more. Someone has to get into Congress and say, whoa, time out. This world is going too fast for us. Machines got to stop. Yes, we're getting smart kids out of MIT and all these places. Yeah, they're all brilliant. But what good is it if you're going to put people out of work? Who's going to support their families? Machines? Machines don't have families. You got to draw the line.
Machines don't have families. Did you hear the emotion in his voice? Now, look, this guy's a big-time union boss, okay? And you can even hear, he's got these big, if you've ever seen the guy, he's not a guy you'd want to meet. I mean, he looks the part, and he's, like I say, he has vast experience in this longshoreman game. I mean, he knows what's going on. And again, this is not about being pro-union. Please understand, this has really nothing to do with unions. If you heard what he said in the beginning, he said, our union, any aspect. That's his nice way of saying, I think, any industry, any job, union or not, people are being replaced. They're being automated. Now, there's two parts to this strike, as we heard in the article earlier from USA Today. One is wages, which is always part. And he talks about, I didn't record this, but he talked at length about the billions and billions of dollars that these shipping companies make. I mean, think about the stakes. They can charge whatever they want. Nobody owns giant ships to send stuff across the ocean. These people, they make billions and billions of dollars. And frankly, a lot of these longshoremen feel like they deserve to be treated a little better. They probably do. Let's face it. On the other hand, I don't have any numbers, but just using my head, I have a feeling that, throwing a few extra grand to them a year would probably not hurt these shipping companies at all. In any event, the other part is automation. And he talks about, throughout first we got the cranes, and then we got these, and then they talk about the containerization of the shipping industry. All right. This was when these container ships became a thing. And now you have the ability with these big cranes to have somebody sitting in an office with a joystick operating the cranes, and they fire everybody. Like he said, they don't want to pay anybody. Do computers have families? No. Neither do the cranes. All right. And I thought his point about the tax base was interesting because computers don't pay taxes either. Now, yes, you could argue, well, if I own the computer and I'm in a company, I'm going to pay. Yes, of course, you're going to be paying taxes. But the point of the point is, what is the point of all these, quote, brilliant kids from MIT, as Mr. Daggett pointed out? What's the point if they're going to put everybody out of work? Isn't there a social aspect that's a little more important than doing everything faster and more efficiently? I mean, this is part of the American consumerism that's gotten way, way out of hand. All right. So to wrap this topic up, using my head, I thought of two things here. And obviously I'm passionate about this, and so is Mr. Daggett. And I'm not saying I agree with the guy. He's got a bully thing going and all that. I'm just saying he makes a very valid point, especially when he asks if machines have families. I mean, that's a question that it's very important to answer. Two things. First of all, the automation. All right. In other words, AI. Okay. That's what, if it's not already there, it's where it's going. It's marching into the blue collar sector. We talked about a conversation I had weeks and weeks ago when my truck was in the shop and I was talking to a couple of the very skilled technicians who had fixed my suspension, which is not only something you need muscles and good hands for, you got to have a brain. These people are dealing with angles and geometry and different things. They're smart people that are in there doing a skilled job. And I had mentioned to them about AI and, good thing you guys are safe. And they said, don't speak too soon. We're reading articles in our trade magazines about AI encroaching into our work with robots and different things. Well, now another blue collar job, the longshoremen, it's pressing into their world now. These are the work with our hands folks, the ones that actually do things and keep the world moving. All right. If we're going to be a bunch of people that just sit around and think all the time, we're not going to have an economy. All right. We got to have somebody driving the boat and operating the crane in a skilled way and repairing these machines. When the crane breaks down, who's going to fix it? Well, we got to have a skilled technician, mechanics. We need these people to keep our infrastructure and our economy moving. These blue collar people are critical, and they deserve to be treated as such. All right. AI encroaching its digital fingers into their world. We talked about, that this blue collar was going to be, and it's not even 2025 yet, and it's already happening. Secondly, a hypothetical question, and I'm just going to put this out there and leave it out there. If we, as consumers now, talking about as consumers, what if we bought just a little less imports and a little bit more American goods? Now, in fairness to the longshoremen of the world, that would probably reduce the amount of containers they're unloading, but I have a feeling in the end they would probably wind up benefiting too. Would this be the potential issue that it is? I mean, this union is threatening to cripple our supply chain, and you know what? Especially on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast where all these ports are, they could probably do it. Would it be the issue it was if we weren't buying so many imports? I just wonder. Let me know. John at useyourheadpodcast.com. I would love to know what you think. I like that part. This is the Use Your Head podcast. I'm John McLean. Thanks for tuning in for our half-hour look into The news of the day, this one may go a little over. I kind of went off on that first topic, but it's important. We're talking about humanity here. All right, enough. Topic number 2, just a regular hero? Yeah, I thought this was kind of interesting. Marvel and DC just lost the superhero trademark. Here's what that means. This is a story from comicbook.com. Yes, I'm serious. And written by Matthew Aguilar. Here's the article. This is interesting stuff. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has shaken things up in the world of comics, as a long-held trademark by Marvel Comics and DC Comics has now been canceled. The announcement comes courtesy of law firm Reichman, Jorgensen, Lehman, and Feldberg, who have declared victory over DC and Marvel in a trademark case over the word superhero. The request was granted after DC and Marvel failed to respond to court requests over the challenge to the joint trademark, and now that it's been canceled, the law firm's clients, S.J. Reichhold and Super Babies Limited, can now use that term without issue. DC Comics and Marvel Comics registered a joint trademark of the word superhero back in 1977, and it was eventually approved in 79. Since then, they have successfully defended the trademark multiple times, both stateside and internationally, but a new challenge to the trademark was made in May of this year. That challenge was issued by Scott Reichhold of Super Babies Limited, stating that superhero, as well as terms like superhero one word or super-hero, are generic terms that aren't entitled to trademark protection. The petition states DC and Marvel are wrong. Trademark law does not permit companies to claim ownership over an entire genre. If you go through the complaint, you find a host of examples from DC, Marvel, Image, and more utilized as proof of the core point. Super Babies then asked the court for a default judgment in their favor and stated that while DC Comics and Marvel characters filed a motion to extend their time to answer the charges, by the 24th of July they had not done so or requested more time to respond, and that led to today's decision to cancel the trademark. So DC and Marvel's like, whatever. They didn't even show up, probably because they knew that they weren't going to win. Just guessing here. This is interesting. All right. Do you like Marvel? I like Marvel movies. My wife loves Marvel movies. If only I looked a little more like Thor. No, in all seriously, they're fun. They're fun. Comics are fun. They're fun to read. They're fun. I love the funny pages in the paper, all that stuff. Using my head as I was reading through this, because, we can laugh and say, comics. Come on. Comics are a huge, huge business. Have you ever seen an article about Comic-Con? I mean, this is a big, big time. And then you've got the collectors where, if you have an original issue Superman #1, you're rich. I mean, this is serious, legit business. And then we have motion pictures. Marvel and DC are the big boys, right? Well, we saw this weeks ago, the same kind of issue, if you've been listening for a while, with the Aikman-Jackson 8 debate, where Troy Aikman had trademarked the number 8, and he's putting out products called 8 because that was his jersey number. Well, Lamar Jackson, who's still playing for Baltimore, is off to a red-hot start, by the way. Lamar Jackson wears number 8, and he's an awesome quarterback. And he's like, well, it's not fair. You can't trademark a number. Come on. Interesting, and we talked about that. So superhero, ironically, is too common to trademark. All right? That's why I came up with just a regular hero. Yeah, superhero is too common to trademark according to the court. And I agree with this. When I use my head, I think this is right. And in fact, it's provided clarity to the Aikman-Jackson debate earlier because I wasn't sure where I stood on that. After seeing this and kind of thinking through it, I agree. I don't think Troy Aikman should be able to trademark the number 8, and I don't think that DC and Marvel should be able to trademark the word superhero. It's part of our lexicon. All right? So I like this ruling. I agree. To me, it would be like Dole trademarking the word banana. And then Chiquita coming in and say, well, that's not fair. We have bananas too. I mean, it's in a strange way, a commodity kind of idea. All right? It makes sense not to allow that. And why? And here's where it boils down. Because I was like, okay, why do I think that? See, this is part of using my head. I'll form an opinion, but then I challenge myself. All right, why do you think that? Does someone just tell you that? Or are you being lazy and thinking, yeah, I think that. Next question. Or why do I think that? And I came up with the answer. And it's just, and again, this is something that runs in the background of my mind constantly because it's how I see the world. Here's the reason why. Because not allowing trademarks like this of genres or common terms promotes competition. And that is always good. Always good. Because with competition, prices go down. Quality and innovation go up, and the consumer is better off. The more competition, the better. There's no question about it. By the way, this is the same reason that allowing the government to take something over is always a disaster, because removing competition always has the opposite effect. Hello, TSA. Hello, healthcare. Anytime the government takes something over and says, all right, everybody get out, we're doing this now, there's no incentive because there's nowhere else for the consumer to go. They're stuck with you. And so you can have as high a price and as lousy a service and product as you want. Competition, good. The Use Your Head podcast continues with topic number 3 today. Step into my offiz. See, I got clever here, especially for an old guy. I spelled office, O-F-F-I-Z. Why? Here's why. Article coming from Yahoo Finance from Oriana Rosa Royal. It's a pretty name. After complaining for the better part of 2 years that Gen Z grads are difficult to work with, bosses are no longer all talk, no action. Now they're rapidly firing young workers who aren't up to scratch just months after hiring them. According to a new report, 6 in 10 employers say they have already sacked some of the Gen Z workers they hired fresh out of college earlier this year. Intelligent.com, a platform dedicated to helping young professionals navigate the future of work, surveyed nearly 1,000 U.S. leaders. It found that the class of 2024's shortcomings will impact future grads. After experiencing a raft of problems with young new hires, 1 in 6 bosses say they're hesitant to hire college grads again. Wow. By the way, you see why I used the Z? Yeah, clever, right? Going on in the article. Meanwhile, 1 in 7 bosses have admitted that they may avoid hiring them altogether next year. 3/4 of the companies surveyed said some or all of their recent graduate hires were unsatisfactory in some way. Whoa. All right, Gen Z grads, unprepared and unprofessional, the article continues. So where is it going wrong for fresh-faced graduates? Employers' gripe with young people today is their lack of motivation or initiative. 50% of the leaders surveyed cited that as the reason why things didn't work out with their new hire. Bosses also pointed to Gen Z being unprofessional, unorganized, and having poor communication skills as their top reasons for having to sack grads. Leaders say they have struggled with the latest generation's tangible challenges, including being late to work and meetings often, not wearing office-appropriate clothing, and using language appropriate for the workplace. Now, more than half of hiring managers have come to the conclusion that college grads are unprepared for the world of work. Meanwhile, over 20% say they just can't handle the workload. All right, we'll stop with the article there. This, in a way, this story breaks my heart. All right, because here's the thing, and I'm guilty of the same thing. All right, we beat up on Gen Z, right? We make fun of them. We talk about how they're ill prepared. They're lazy. They're dumb. They're and it's not fair. All right, it's hard not to feel sorry for these Gen Z young people. Listen, stay with me here. I'm not going soft on you. But I'm using my head and I'm putting myself in their shoes, right? Walking a mile is a good thing to do. When we walk a mile, we seek to understand someone that comes from a different place and is in a different place than we are, right? I'm a Gen X guy. The world was unrecognizable when I came up through the ranks, as a young student. I mean, there was no internet when I was in college. It didn't exist. There was nothing. The email was this new innovation. They were just experimenting with it when I got out of college. So it's hard not to feel sorry for these Gen Z young people. They think they're ready. All right, they're going to class. They're making their grades. They're turning in their papers. And they're walking and getting that sheepskin, and they think they're ready. And why? Because their educators told them they were. And by the way, they charge them or their folks or, Sally Mae or what is the student loan people? Somebody's getting charged a fortune in the process. All right? I mean, look, I remember well when I was nearing the end of high school, what did my parents tell me? All right, listen, college is a different world. It's expensive and it's hard. So go there, knuckle down, and study hard and listen to your professors, all right? Because this is the real game now, all right? In other words, a gentle way of saying childhood is ending. It's time to move into the next phase of your life where you are responsible for yourself. Now, granted, college is often a time of partying and riotous living and all that kind of thing, and it certainly was for me at times. I would certainly never describe my collegiate years as taking myself seriously, my future seriously all the time. I had my moments. And I think in that sense, I'm probably like a lot of kids when I was a kid. But here's the thing. When you go to class, that freshman year and you're scared to death and you show up and you realize, wow, there's a lot more reading at this level. And you're going into that process of becoming a college student. You listen to your teachers. And you bust your hump through a semester and you work hard and you get what grades you get. You try to get the best you can and you assess and you think, wow, okay, one step closer. And so that by the end of the 4 years, 5 years, 5.5 in my case, and you finish, you think you're ready. I mean, what do these universities tell parents? Oh, you should come to my university because I will prepare your child for the workplace. They'll become a functioning member of society. They'll create a future for humanity that's better. And all this blather, these marketing messages from these colleges. And now these Gen Z people are going out and getting hired, and the corporate world is saying they're useless in many cases. They're unsatisfactorily prepared. They're unprofessional. And in some cases, for the simplest things like wearing the right clothes, not cussing a blue streak at the office, acting like a mature adult. That's what they're looking for. You're not expected to know everything when you walk into that office as a brand new, wet behind the ears college puke. They're going to teach you the way we do things at Acme Company. But you are expected to have a base knowledge, and most of all, there is a level of professional maturity that must be there. Otherwise, there's no place to go but down. And I tell you, I see it all the time. I mean, how many of us, go out into the world and we seek service from a company that we trade with, and we find young people that are absolutely clueless. And we get angry at them. And then we begin assigning it to the whole generation. Well, these Gen Z, these people are idiots. I'm going to say, when I use my head, that it's often not their fault. I think a lot of these young people, and I'm talking about, collegiate. This is what we're talking about in the story here. These young people went off to college with a dream. They want to be successful. Of course they do. They want to have a home and a nice car and and all that. They have goals in life just like everybody else did. The difference is they're being sold a bill of goods in collegiate America today. That's the message here. When I use my head, is there any other message? When you have these vast, we're not talking about exceptions to the rule here. These are big numbers that these companies are reporting. Starting to look like college is a bit of a ripoff, isn't it? Hate to say it, I love to learn. I love education. I love learning new things. That's why I have way too many hobbies, because I love to learn. But colleges in this country are going to have to start doing better, because you're charging way more money and giving the customer, in this case, the Gen Z graduate, and the people footing the bill, which is often mom and dad or student loans or whatever the case, a raw deal. A raw deal. You got to stop it. It's got to be better. So I'm not going to pick on Gen Z. All right. I think it's really in many cases, and of course, there's always exceptions. There's bad apples in every bunch, but I think the bushel basket is full of a lot of well-meaning young people that got a raw deal in school. And of course, I always welcome your thoughts at John at useyourheadpodcast.com. John at useyourheadpodcast.com. Anytime. Love to hear from you. There's some good stuff to think about and talk about here, and I'd love to hear from you. As a baseball fan, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the passing of Charlie Hustle. Pete Rose died this week at the age of 83. And Pete, like many folks nowadays, it seems, was a very polarizing guy. People either love Pete Rose or they loathe Pete Rose for a number of reasons. And we won't talk about those. They've been beaten to death. But there is no doubt to any baseball fan that Pete Rose was one of the finest baseball players ever. No one that I've ever seen beat Pete Rose for effort on the diamond. I mean, nobody. We've all seen that iconic image of Pete Rose literally flying like Superman into the base, sacrificing, knowing that he was probably, it didn't matter. What mattered to Pete Rose was winning. And it was inspiring to watch him. So Pete Rose gone at the age of 83. Baseball playoffs are underway. My Brewers face elimination tonight. I'm going to watch the game. Hope you're enjoying that, enjoying everything you do, including this podcast. Thank you so much for the half hour. Time is gone. Use your head until we see each other next week. Bye-bye.